Hey everybody, Connor here today at eTrailer.com. Today we're going to be going over and showing you how to install the Roadmaster Diode Wiring Kit here on our 2020 Jeep Gladiator. So this is what our diode wiring kit is going to look like installed. As you can see here, it's going to use the factory taillight housings. Therefore, we're not going to have to worry about any extra lights, such as the magnetic lights, which attach to a magnetic roof. Then we have to drape some wires down the hood of the vehicle. So it's definitely not an ideal setup. One of the other options you have is a plug-and-play bulb and socket kit. Basically, what this requires is drilling into our taillight housing, which really isn't the best method because if we have to replace those bulbs, we have to go ahead and tear that out and break the seal. And it also requires some modifications to the factory taillight housings. But this diode kit here, it actually splices in to the factory taillight circuits and uses the factory unmodified taillight housing. So it's really going to be a great option for a seamless finished install look. So our diode wiring kit, what it basically does in its most essential form is, it's going to let others know behind us what we're signaling in our motorhome. It's going to take the signals from our motorhome, whether we're making a left turn or right turn, or we're coming to a stop, and it's going to apply those signals to our towed vehicle here so we can let motorists behind us know what we're doing, even though they can't see the taillights on our motorhome. So here's what our connection is going to look like installed on the front of our Gladiator. As you can see here, we have our 6-pole connector attached to the 6-pole bracket that comes with our kit. We've actually installed this under the factory Jeep bumper, which gives it a really nice finished install look. So this particular connector here is a 7-way to a 6-way. So most of our motorhomes are going to have the standard 7-blade connection, so we're not going to need any adapter there, and then we can wire up the 6-way on the Jeep accordingly. Now the 6-way is going to give us the most basic functions such as the stop, turn, and taillight circuits, but we're also going to have an extra circuit as well if needed for a battery charge line. It isn't going to be required for this vehicle, but we can add one for some peace of mind. So our kit here comes with a straight umbilical cord, and this may be a good choice for you if you have a tow bar with an integrated channel that are going to use to help secure the wiring. Basically, it helps hold it in there so we don't have to worry about it dragging on the ground. If you don't, however, have a tow bar with this integrated channel, you may be interested in a different kit, which is the same with this one for the exception of our umbilical cord here. This one actually comes with a coiled connector, and it helps us decrease the chance of the electrical connector dragging the ground and causing damage. So, depending on what tow bar you have, you may be interested in the straight cable, which we have here, or the kit that comes with the coiled cable, which we offer as well. So in regards to installation, this one is actually pretty simple. We'll show you a cool little trick to mount your trailer connector at the front of the Jeep. But aside from that, pretty much everything just entails running the wiring to the rear. We just snuck it through the frame rail, and then we have to make a couple slices into the factory taillight circuits. But aside from that, there's very little modifications needed. Let's go ahead and jump into that install so we can show you how it's done. So the first step of our installation here, we're going to find a spot on the front of our Jeep here where we can mount our trailer connector. Now in our kit, we're going to get a trailer connector bracket that looks like this. Now I've got an idea, but we're actually going to be using a different trailer connector bracket, which is the one that came with our eTrailer base plate kit. Now I'll show you how to install this as well, but the bracket we have here, which came from our eTrailer base plate kit, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to opt for a no drill, minimal modification installation. So if we take a look on the bottom side of our bumper here, we're going to see 2 screws there. I'm going to remove those with a 7mm socket, and basically the holes on our bracket here almost line up with those holes there. So what I did is I just took a drill bit and I just wallowed out those holes a little bit side to side. You can see they're a little bit different than the ones below here, but basically I just made that so it's going to line up with the holes there. And then I could unscrew these screws here, put our bracket into place, and then re-secure them. Therefore, I can secure the trailer connector to the bumper without any drilling. I'm then going to drill a hole right here with a step drill bit so I can feed my wires through and attach it to the back of the connector. So if you're using an eTrailer base plate kit, I definitely recommend using the bracket that comes with it. But if not, we can still use the bracket here that comes with our diode kit. However, we will need to drill 2 holes of our own in the bottom of the bumper fascia to mount the connector. But the rest of the process should be the same in regards to drilling a large hole here for our wires to feed through, and then the rest of the installation. So that's how you would install this, but since we don't really want to drill into that bumper, and we do have this bracket that'll avoid doing that, that's the thing we're going to do next. So right now, I've already went ahead and marked out, but I've mocked this up, got my holes lined up, and I basically just took a paint marker, stuck it through the center of there. So I'm going to use a step drill bit now and drill out that hole so we can feed our wires through. So now that we have our hole drilled, I went ahead and took our bonded 4-pole wire and I just fed one end down and out this hole here, giving ourselves plenty of room to work with. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take the other end of our bonded 4-pole here and we're going to run that all the way to the rear of the vehicle because we're going to be splicing into our taillights. Now we've already done this, but let's go ahead now and show you the path that we took. So here we come. We have it coming out behind the skid shield panel there. We have it zip tied to a few of the brackets and lines that are already ran because we need to be careful here. We have our sway bar and we have our rack and pinion. So we don't want our wire getting tangled up in any of those things. So we have a zip tie here, we have a zip tie up here. We also have another zip tie sort of above the axle here, which is hard to see. But then we have our wire coming out over here. We have another zip tie here securing it to the brake line. And then we actually have it ran into the frame and all the way down to the other side. Now we'll show you where that comes out, but it's pretty easy to run the wire through the frame here. We have plenty of access holes on the outside. Basically, you just feed the wire in, you push it through until you can grab onto it through one of the access holes, pull it through, and then repeat the process all the way down. If you have a piece of airline tubing that's a little bit stiffer, it's a little bit easier to route through that frame. You can tie your wire to that and do it that way. But now let's go ahead and show you where we came out at the rear. So sort of directly behind our hitch cross tube here, we're going to have an access hole in the frame. That's going to be the very rearward-most access hole. And that's the one that we came out here. Now we just have our excess wire secured around the trailer hitch. So just to show you what it's going to look like when we have our bracket installed, let's go ahead and get that up now. Feed our wire through. And there we go. So now that we have our bonded wiring harness ran to the rear of our truck here, we can go ahead and begin removing our taillights. On the inside here, we're going to have 2 bolts, which we'll remove with an 8mm socket. And once those are both out, we should be able to pull our taillight straight back and out. There will be some alignment tabs that's holding it in place. I'm going to be careful not to damage these. There's the tabs we were talking about. But now that we have the taillight popped out, we can go ahead and release it from the housing here. We're going to turn these connectors here. It should release the fittings, just like that. So we'll have one there. We'll have another one back here. We'll need to go ahead and pull that red tab out. We should be able to depress the clip and pull it out like so. Don't forget the one on the bottom as well. We'll go ahead and repeat that process on the other side. So we can set our taillights aside for now. So now that we have our taillight and our harness removed, we went ahead and came down underneath and just fed through our bonded 4-pole wire. But once we get it pulled up here, what I like to do is I'm going to take a zip tie. I'm just going to zip tie it to that wiring harness we have at the rear there, so we don't have to worry about it falling back down. So the first thing we're going to do now, once we have our bonded 4-pole up here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to separate the green wire because that's going to be ran over to the passenger side. So we'll go ahead and pull that back now. So we're actually going to come underneath, we're going to grab that other strand of the green wire and we're going to pull it the rest of the way down because this will actually be ran to the other side of the vehicle. So now that we have our green wire separated, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to separate our white wire. This is going to be for the ground, And we're simply going to attach a self-tapping screw and ring terminal. We're going to ground it somewhere here in this taillight pocket. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this wire down because we're not going to need this much extra. Then I am going to strip some of the jacket back and crimp on our ring terminal that comes with our kit here. Now we can go ahead and take the self-tapping screw that comes with. We can go ahead and ground that to a surface here inside the taillight pocket. We're going to be using the one sort of up here on that angled portion so it's out of the way and it doesn't interfere with our taillight. So we already removed this for the last step, but it can still be installed. It doesn't really matter. We are, however, going to need to remove it for this step. So we're going to go ahead and pull down on that red tab there, press this in to release our harness. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to strip some of this electrical tape off because we need to splice our diodes in line with this harness here. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. So once we have all the tape pulled back from our wiring harness here, we need to identify two circuits. Now we've already went ahead and done this for you, but the two circuits we need to identify are the stop and turn signal circuits as well as the taillight circuits. Now we're working over here on the driver's side. If we look directly behind our connector here, we went ahead and tested this for you already, but the white wire is going to be for the taillight circuit and the yellow wire is going to be for the stop/turn signal circuit. Let's go ahead and attach the stop/turn signal circuit now. Take that yellow wire there, cut it about in half, like so. Now we can take our quick splice connectors, or our wire strippers here, sorry, and go ahead and strip some of that jacket off our wire. Now we can take the other side here, do the same thing. So once we have both ends of our wire stripped here, we'll take one of our diodes here, the one with just the blue connectors, we'll pull one off, and we'll go ahead and crimp it onto our wire. We'll do the same for the other side. Now we can go ahead and attach our diode. The side that's labeled out is going to be going towards our bulb. The other side, it doesn't matter which one is which. We can just hook that up like so. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take a set of vice grips here, and I'm just going to further clamp down those spade terminals to help them bite a little bit more on the spade. So we still have one more connection to make, but we're going to save that until we get our other diode in place. We're going to be using the one with the yellow and blue connectors. This will be for the taillight circuit. Now the taillight circuit is going to be carried on this white wire here. So we're just going to do the same thing we did for this one here and cut it in half. Now we'll take one of our spades off the diode and crimp it on. Now we can go ahead and attach our diode here. And again, we're still going to have one other connection we need to make still. But we'll finish those up here next once we get the harness back on. So we'll take our harness here, we'll plug it back into the factory connector, making sure we hear it lock into place. We'll depress that red tab to secure it. Now we're going to take our remaining yellow and brown wire. We'll go ahead and separate these out. We'll be working with the yellow wire first. This is for the stop/turn signal circuit here on the driver's side. And this is going to splice into our diode here for the yellow wire, our remaining connector. So we'll go ahead and cut some of the excess wire off that we're not going to use. I'll strip some of the jacket back and attach one of our blue spade terminals. Now I can simply plug that in to the diode with our yellow wire. Just like that. So now we have our final brown wire here. We'll go ahead and trim some of the excess off that as well. And we'll have our final yellow connector. But we want to make sure that we don't just crimp that on to the yellow connector, because we actually need to run a piggyback over to the passenger side as well for that taillight circuit. So we're going to be using an extra piece of brown wire we had laying around, and we're going to attach it to that brown wire that we just stripped some of the jacket off of, just like this. And then once we twist those two strands together, now we can crimp on our yellow spade terminal. So we get that nice and tight, we can go ahead and slip that on. Now what we're going to do is, on the back of our diodes, we have this double-sided tape. What we always like to do is just go ahead and take that off, and you just attach them to one another so we don't have to worry about them banging around as much. But that's pretty much it, aside from running the brown wire back down through that taillight pocket and over to the other side of the vehicle along with our green wire. Then we'll go ahead and reinstall our taillights and test everything out. We've come back underneath the vehicle here. We've taken our green and brown wire. We just sort of secured it to the trailer hitch with some zip ties and ran it over here to the passenger side. Now we'll take our two wires, we'll just feed it up in our taillight pocket here. And then we're pretty much just going to repeat the connections that we made over on the driver's side. The wires that we'll be splicing into in the harness will be the same color as they were on the driver's side. Yellow for the stop/turn signal circuit, and then white for the taillight circuit. The only difference in regards to the diodes is our running light, which is this brown wire here. We don't have to worry about using the diode with the yellow connector. Since we're only going to have one wire going into it, we don't have to worry about a jumper wire going to the other side. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and install the trailer connector onto the front of our Jeep here. So we have some extra wire. I'm just going to go ahead and cut this off now. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate each of these strands here from the main harness. Just going to cut little slits in them. We should be able to pull them back. Now once we have all of our wires separated, I'm going to go ahead and strip some of the jacket off. I'm going to take all of our wires and condense them down so then we can go ahead and install the boot for our plug. And we'll slide that over like so. Now what we're going to do is we're going to need a small Phillips head screwdriver. We're going to attach each of these wires to the terminals on the back of our trailer connector. I'll show you that now. So each of these terminals are actually going to be labeled. Right now we're going to start with the ground. That's going to be labeled GD. So we're just going to loosen that screw there, making sure we don't remove it completely. Then we'll take our white wire here and we'll attach it inside that terminal. And then we'll tighten the screw down. Next we have our yellow wire. That's going to go in the left-hand stop/turn signal circuit. The next thing we're going to do is take our green wire, which is for the right-hand stop/turn signal circuit. Go ahead and attach that one. And then finally the brown, which will go to the TM slot on the back of our connector. So once we get all of our connections made, this step isn't required, but I do recommend it. We're going to take some silicone here. We're just going to fill in all these terminals here so we don't have to worry about any corrosion issues if water gets inside. Now we'll go ahead and take our boot and just slide that back over all of our connections. And then finally, we will mount the trailer connector here to the bracket. Now we're going to take our hardware here. I'm going to start by placing the bolt in through the two holes. On the back side, we'll have our split lock washer and then our jam nut. We're going to be tightening this down with an 11mm socket and ratchet. We're going to start with our tail lights here, followed by our left turn signal, our brake lights, and then finally the right turn signal. So there we go. Now everything is working correctly. And that'll do it today for our look and installation of the Roadmaster Diode Wiring Kit here on our 2020 Jeep Gladiator.